Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. It begins in ancient Greece with a party of pirates raiding the Macedonian coastline. The leader Greece questions their hostage Iolaus of Athens about his uncle while dangling him above a spike. The nephew of the famous Hercules tells stories about his origins as the son of Zeus and human mother Queen Alcmene. Zeus's wife Hera saw his birth as an insult, so she sent 2 serpents to kill young Hercules in his crib, but luckily he possessed his father's strength. Hera agreed to leave him alone if he completed 12 impossible labors that included defeating the Linean Hydra, the Erymanthian boar, and the Nemean lion, whose hide was so impenetrable that Hercules had to break its neck. Most of the public, like Greece, question the truth behind Hercules' demigod heritage, and wearing a lion's head much smaller than the stories doesn't help. Herc requests that the pirate release his nephew, so Greece sends 5 men to shut him up, but they're all killed with a single swing from his club. Still not convinced, the rest of the crew charge the leader of a band of mercenaries but are cut down by the knife-throwing Autolycus of Sparta. Accompanied by the archer Atalanta of Scythia, they make it appear like Hercules does these impossible things to keep their enemies living in fear and their employers paying the most. It's not to say that Hercules doesn't display supernatural strength, just that mythological creatures like the Hydra don't really exist and were just men wearing anaconda hats. Further aided by the mute warrior Tydeus of Thebes, who was more animal than man when Herc found him and still requires being kept on a chain at night. The band of mercenaries have been hired by the king of the land to exterminate the pirate menace from his coastline, and do just that. Hercules saves his nephew from a spike up the bottom before allowing all but Greece to return home alive. The final member of the team's the prophet Amphiaraus of Argos, who's said to know about his own death, so he's able to fight without fear until that moment comes. He was once a king and wields a spear with fenders as well as a chariot with the same feat of mechanical engineering. Once finished with their mission, Herc's mercs celebrate at a tavern where Iolaus uses his uncle's fame to try to pick up women, but they only have eyes for muscles. Hercules talks about taking Tydeus with him when he retires, as he believes that the world's become too civilized for either of them to ever be comfortable in it again. Just then the party get approached by the daughter of the Thracian king, who wants Hercules to help defend them against a bloodthirsty warlord named Reece. Princess Ergenia says that they'll pay the mercenaries weight in gold, so Hercules accepts the offer and eats as much as he's able to before being weighed in Thrace. They're welcomed upon arrival by General Cytocles, who's disappointed by Hercules' appearance as he expected somebody much bigger. He takes the visitors inside as we're shown a flashback to Hercules returning home to his wife Megara and their children in Athens. 3 years ago Herc completed the final labor put upon him and was publicly celebrated for his accomplishments by the citizens and King Eurystheus. Like Herc, he knew that the superstitious stories were false but continued the lie to keep the public spirits high and adoring their demigod. Everything was going great until one night Hercules blacked out, and when he came to, he was blamed for killing Meg and their children, getting him cast out of Athens. They call it the blood rage that a warrior gets when times get too peaceful, but Herc's been haunted by visions of the 3-headed dog Cerberus ever since. In the present day, the Thracian king Codus greets Hercules but expected him to fight alone, and especially not with a woman by his side. Atalanta demonstrates that she does just fine, and the next day they begin training the army, starting with the basics of a shield wall. The ranks are made up of farmers who completely crumble under the weight of a charging Tydeus, which has them worried since he weighs so little. At dinner they're told the stories about the king's arch-nemesis Reece and his army of centaurs that have been pillaging settlements around Thrace. Afterwards they go over battle plans for dealing with him when the king's spy Phineas reports that he's seen the horsemen with his own eyes. With all that the mercs have seen, they don't believe him, but it's got the king so terrified that he orders his army to march on Reece in the morning despite being untrained. The next day, after gearing up, they reach the nearest settlement, but find it already destroyed and corpses of the townspeople scattered around in pieces. Half are just the barbarian locals called the Bessi, who've laid a trap for their fellow Thracians without any provocation. At least that's what King Codus says, that it must be the work of Reece's evil magic, as the locals begin to emerge by the hundreds. When the biggest Bessi of the bunch challenges Hercules to a fight, he sees this as a good opportunity to rally the men behind him. Using an arrowhead broken off Atalanta's tip, the demigod makes it seem like he can kill a man with a single punch. The motivated army now behind him endures the charging barbarian force as they clash against their shields. They protect the king and Iolaus within a square formation, while the mercenaries fight outside along with the general and his bone whip. Eventually the Bessi break the shield wall, so the mercenaries retrieve their chariots to cut the barbarians down by the dozens. After the enemy are defeated and the remaining retreat into the surrounding forest, Iolaus covers up Hercules as he took damage in the fight and doesn't want the soldiers to see him bleed. General Cytocles blames Phineas for leading them into an ambush, but Autolycus protects the spy as they've already lost half their army. That night Herc's given treatment for his wounds by the princess and everything's going great between them until she asks if he has children. Not wanting to speak about it, the mercenary decides to go to sleep and has a dream where he's walking through a forest of corpses and finds his family. Cerberus is there to feed on them, and when Herc charges at it with a spear, it disappears and he's found by Tydeus having just been sleepwalking. The next day Hercules gets permission to properly train the king's army, this time while we see one of Reece's scouts watching them from afar. The mercs hand out equipment to the soldiers, including a lightweight armor that Iolaus fantasizes is indestructible as it was cut from the Erymanthian boar. When questioned on how they managed to cut it to shape, the storyteller has to think on his feet that Hercules also used an indestructible knife. After getting an appropriate amount of military training and creating a shield wall that's able to withstand the charge of at least a single person, the army begin to march to the Thracian border to confront Reece and his soldiers on the battlefield. They appear to be centaurs, just like Phineas said, but none of the men ever got close enough to learn that they're just normal men riding high on horses. Reece reveals that Phineas has betrayed them and the Thracian forces are outnumbered 3-1, but they refuse to surrender, so he rides back to his army to prepare for a charge while the king's men form another shield wall. This time though, Atalanta atop Tydeus's chariot thins out the charging horsemen so that there's no real collision with the enemy. The rest of the mercenaries fight in front of the shield wall, and when a volley of arrows are fired at Amphiaraus, he thinks this is his time, but they all completely miss.
Maybe not.
Atalanta and Tydeus get thrown from the chariot and continue fighting with their team on foot until the remaining centaur army are forced to retreat. Reece rides out to confront Hercules in a last attempt to cut the head off the snake, but is tossed to the ground along with his horse and defeated without a fight. He's taken back to Thrace as a prisoner, where the crowd throws stones at the defeated army, so Herc takes pity on him. When he mentions Reece burning down villages, he denies the lie and tells Hercules that he has been fighting on the wrong side of the war. Later during a feast, Reece is chained up and put on display while Ergenia is questioned by Hercules about the true villain of the war. She admits that it was merely retaliation against her father's attempts to expand his kingdom and only goes along with it to protect her child's life. Hercules confronts Codus, who's already looking at expanding his land further, and reveals that he killed his daughter's husband to take his place as the legitimate king. He still allows the mercenaries to leave after receiving their rewards, but Hercules decides to stay behind to stop him. All of his team choose to follow Herc into battle except for Autolycus, who takes everyone's share of gold and books it out of there on his chariot. The rest of them march on the throne room searching for the king, however they all get instantly captured by the general, who predicted a retaliatory attack. Codus locks them all up, even his own daughter, for conspiring against him, and takes her child to raise him into the successor that he wants him to be. He imprisons the mercenaries in the dungeon while a chained Hercules is confronted by 3 wolves owned by Eurystheus. He reveals that he's in league with Codus and tricked Hercules the night his family died into thinking he killed them and saw the hellhound Cerberus. Jealous and viewing Herc as a threat to his power should he ever want the throne for himself, he set the animals on his family and now taunts him. When Codus orders Ergenia to be executed right then and there, Hercules is encouraged by Amphiaraus to believe in himself, and in a show of strength he breaks his chains free from the ground and uses them to crush her executioner. The wolves latch onto him while the other mercs are trapped and unable to assist, but Herc manages to kill all 3 with his bare hands and a tooth that he took from the lion. The kings run away as Hercules releases all of the prisoners, and they cut their way through the defending guards to escape the dungeon. Herc sends Reece off with his team and goes it alone to confront Eurystheus, who claims to have been under Codus' spell all along. He still impales the lying king with his own dagger to the throne before being attacked from behind by Cytocles. About to kill Herc, the general stabbed stabbed in the back and killed by Iolaus after spending the whole movie mocking the nephew's ability to do any damage. They fight their way outside, but a spear's hurled at Amphiaraus, who thinks this is his time, but it's snatched away by Hercules. In the courtyard, Hercules and his team are confronted by Codus and his entire army, who threaten to kill Ergenia's child if they don't drop their weapons. Just then Autolycus saves the boy, having returned to help his friends, and Tydeus' body blocks the archer's arrows from hitting the retreating child. He reunites with his mother, but Tydeus gets mortally wounded, so he charges at the unit of archers, deflecting enough arrows to reach them. He slaughters the whole group while collecting more arrows in his torso before being recovered by Herc and carried the rest of the way upstairs. At the base of the statue of Hera, the group knock over fire braziers to hold the soldiers back while Tydeus finally speaks when he says Hercules. He bleeds out as the army returns using the shield wall that Herc taught them, but he uses his inhuman strength again to push the massive statue from its foundations on top of them. Many of the soldiers, including Codus himself, are crushed by it, resulting in the surviving men kneeling to their new leader Hercules, since they liked him anyway after all the training that he gave them. Amphiaraus narrates that Ergenia's son will take the throne while Hercules and his team departed in search of new adventures. And the movie ends.